What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chaez Pearson, and this is the Outlet Forum with my esteemed co-host Chris Camello. What up, Chris?
It's the dog days of summer for everybody, especially the NBA season, my friend.
Absolutely, man. We got another fire show for you this week. We got the NBA schedule has dropped. We'll talk about some of the great matchups coming up, not only on opening day, but the NBA Cup, Christmas Day, and even that back end half of the season. And we got Anthony Edwards with some real interesting comments as well about skill in the NBA. We'll also talk a little bit about who has more to prove in this upcoming season for the young guys in SGA, Zion or Wemby. But Chris, we got to talk storylines as well today. But the NBA schedule is here, and we know who is going to be able to know when they're going to fly out to LA, Miami, New York. We'll be able to see Wemby in Madison Square Garden for the first time in a while, or the first time ever, I think. You got guys coming into Denver like Ant Edwards and KD that, lost to the Denver Nuggets. But what are some of the top matchups that you're looking forward to in this season, Chris?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to gauge right now. And I got to be honest, Chaz, there's not a ton in the Western Conference that I'm looking forward to. And if there are, it's maybe Minnesota, OKC, two of the teams that many believe are going to be duking it out for the next five years. Two of the more young, exciting teams. Obviously, people may be looking at the finals rematch between Boston and Dallas, but I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to that first Boston-Philly matchup. I'm going to throw out a few. I don't have exact dates, but these are the ones I'll be looking forward to. The first Boston-Philly matchup. I'm also looking forward to the first New York-Philly matchup. And then I think we would all be remiss, New York, Boston. That is going to be the one to see because remember, all of the moves that the Knicks made during this offseason was to stop Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. So those are the matchups I'm looking forward to, specifically New York, Boston. I think that rivalry is back, man. Two legacy franchises back to a credible status at the same time. We haven't seen that in years. Probably not since maybe early 2000s, maybe even before that, going back to the 80s or 90s. So, those are the ones I'm looking forward to. How about you?
The very first game that I'm looking forward to is seeing Anthony Edwards come up in the Staples Center, or what we call now the BBGO Center. Oh, I'm sorry, not the BBGO Center, the Crypto.com arena. The Lakers have so many sponsors that you just forget, what the place is called. But I'm looking forward to that first game, opening night. Coming into the game, you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis playing well, coming off the gold medal. You got Anthony Edwards playing at a very high level. That's the game that I'm actually looking forward to as well. The Christmas game, the Warrior. I don't know why. I mean, I know Steph and LeBron are the top draws and why they want them to be, still that marquee game. But I don't know why they got the Lakers traveling all the way to the Bay when there ain't no Klay Thompson there anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't understand that, but I guess it's still LeBron and Steph. So that's actually a game that I'm looking forward to, obviously, on Christmas. Another one that I'm really looking forward to is the Timberwolves. A lot of Timberwolves games because I really want to see how Anthony Edwards bounces back after, getting blown out in the Western Conference Finals by Luka. But the Nuggets versus the Timberwolves in Denver in November. That's a huge matchup that I'm looking forward to. So there's so many to choose from. Those are just a couple, just to name a few. But obviously, all the New York games, New York and Philly are the two teams that I'm looking forward to watching every single game. I don't care if it's in Charlotte, Milwaukee. League Pass is going to be locked in for me when it comes to those teams because I really want to see how Paul George and Joel Embiid really mesh. I'm not really worried about Tyrese Maxey. He's going to do his thing. He earned his money a couple times over as far as I'm concerned. I'm interested to see what Paul George is going to do Joel Embiid, especially coming off of his Olympic performance, and obviously the Villanova brothers. I really want to see how Mikal Bridges is going to adapt with Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, DiVincenzo. Like those guys really play well together. But Bridges is like the last guy to come in, and he hasn't played with any of these guys, since college, right? So I really want to see how those guys will mesh. But Julius Randle being healthy, the loss of Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be very, very interesting. So New York and Philly, all games for those two teams. We'll be on the docket for me, man, for real.
For sure. That's what I'm saying. The Eastern Conference is going to have the most compelling matchups. And I think you also have to watch out for Milwaukee. What's Milwaukee going to do this year? Are they going to recover from yet another first round exit? Obviously, we were cheated out of what should have been a potentially good playoff run, and seeing what Dame could do with Giannis. Now they've got a year under their belt. Dame has hopefully gotten, more comfortable with the Bucks, and we'll see. Dame has talked a lot during this offseason and just kind of being, throwing ideas out there like, they kind of take my consistency for granted and it's boring and all of that stuff. You could tell he's trying to find things to motivate himself. And let's not forget, Chaz, he was going through a divorce last year. He was away from his kids for a lot of that season, not only going through the divorce, but now having to move across the country. That couldn't have been easy for him. Now that he's got some of that stuff behind him, a full season with Doc Rivers, a full season with Giannis. We'll see how healthy Chris Middleton is. That's really the team that could be a major X factor and a major disruptor. And I could see Giannis this year, because look how he played during the Olympics. Yes, Greece didn't go that far, but he put that team on his back, and he reminded people why he was a two-time MVP and why he's still one of the elites in this game. So I think between how they exited the playoffs, all of that, look for them to also be a disruptor. Look ahead to that Boston matchup, that Philly matchup, that New York matchup, because I got a feeling both of those guys this year, the Greek Freak and Dame Dollar, are going to be like, hey, you remember me, Eddie? That's what they're going to be doing.
I really
pulling a Roger Rabbit out of your hat.
I really hope that you're right, because Dame and Giannis were so – they were just a letdown for me, because even though they played well in the first half of the season, their coach was inadequate, which is why he got fired. I don't care what anybody says. He won more games than Doc Rivers. You saw that he was in over his skis. We all can see it. Like, if you know the game, you've seen the game, you watched the game for long enough, you know when a head coach is a head coach for the first time, when he's in over his skis. Guys like Nathaniel Hackett, guys like Adrian Griffin, it just happens. Guys like Mike Brown in his first stint in LA, like they're just guys that not Mike Brown now in Sacramento. No. We're talking about Mike Brown, Death Stare, Kobe Mike Brown. Yeah. That Mike Brown was in over his skis, even though he had coached LeBron James already at that point. But
I think you could even make an argument for Ham. I think the moment got to him.
Towards the end, most definitely. I really think that Darvin Ham could have done a better job of not unraveling towards the end of his tenure in Los Angeles, as short as it was in 2 seasons. But, it really just comes down to different factors and how guys mesh and how guys, move forward. So I really just like to see how Dame responds, what kind of shape he's in. He says, he stays in shape. He can do everything that he could do 2-3 years ago. I'm really interested to see, can you play defense like you did 2-3 years ago? Everything offensively, yeah, your offensive game is, but when you age and you're past 30, you can't move them as fast as you once used to. So that's really what I'm interested to see. But he says he can, so I'm going to take his word on it, because he's Dame Dollar. How he meshes with Giannis. Giannis is going to be on an absolute tear this upcoming season, because he was injured, because he wants the title, because he wasn't even voted as top 3 for MVP when he could have had a legitimate claim to MVP himself if everybody just wasn't tired with voting for Giannis. I think Jokic is going to have a little bit of that as well.
For sure.
I don't think Jokic is going to get a whole lot of votes, especially
I mean,
KCP.
Short of the Denver Nuggets winning 65 to 70 games, which is possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Denver might even take a little bit of a step back. I mean, they lost KCP. And here's the thing, it's not the problem that they lost KCP per se. It's the fact that they didn't really replace him very well. And we'll see what Russell Westbrook brings to the table. They're banking on those young guys, Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, Ken Carr, who missed the entire season recovering from a torn ACL that I believe he suffered in last summer's FIBA World Cup. So you have now a Denver team that really was out of gas. Even KCP admitted that we probably should have lost that series to the Lakers, but through the sheer will of Jamal Murray toward the end of games, between the sharp shooting of Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic outplaying Anthony Davis for large stretches of that series, they were not only able to survive the series, but they didn't even need a 6 game to put away LA. So it'll be interesting to see Russell Westbrook fitting in with Denver and how that dynamic is going to work, because he'll provide some defense, but he's not going to provide the shooting that Denver needs that makes them effective, next to Murray and Porter and even Jokic. So we'll see what happens with Denver. But I think the West is going to be a shit show this year, bro. It is going to be everybody beating each other up because a lot of teams have improved. You have teams on the rise. And you want to talk about another, remember me, Eddie? That team this year in the West is going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember me, Eddie. Watch out for Triple J, Ja, a young Zach Edey, full season with Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane. They are going to be, and those young players getting the experience that they did last year. Chaez, I'll turn it over to you in a sec. But those young players last year getting the experience and the run that they did, I think they'll be able to fill the holes more adequately. And if nothing else, they'll have potential trade chips down the road. So if they need to add another veteran swingman piece, that they'll be able to do that. They'll have the pieces to make that put together. But I just think Memphis is the team to watch. That's the Remember Me, Eddie team.
There's a whole lot of people that really feel that way about Memphis, and I'm just not willing to go there. For the Memphis Grizzlies are so young, and their leader was so out of it in terms of, he got this case going on, he got that suspension going on. He got this injury going on at the end of the year. Like, they're gonna have to show me first before I hop back on that bandwagon and really believe in the Memphis Grizzlies. I do believe in Taylor Jenkins. He's gonna coach his team. I do believe in Triple J. I do even believe in Marcus Smart, obviously, as well, because he's been around the block a few times and then some with his level of experience and his defensive tenacity. But again, he's a player that's getting older. That's always injured at some point in the season. So those guys are really going to have to show me before you tell me that Memphis is going to win more than 45 games and really challenge for a spot that's more meaningful than, 9th or 10th in the play-in. I just don't see it, especially with all the other teams in the league doing what they're going to do.
For sure. I'm just saying watch out for them. They're a team I think you want to watch out for. San Antonio is another team you want to watch out for. Houston is a team you want to watch out for, because I think all of these teams are going to be itching to prove something. So, and we've seen this before. We've seen this story before where a team overplays one year and then now they've set a bar really high and they don't really meet that. I think last year that was the Sacramento Kings, who had such an impressive run in 23. And then in 24, they were a play-in team that never even got out of the play-in tournament. So their season only lasted an extra couple of games and they were out. By the way, real quick, Chaez, shout out to anyone following us on Twitter and Instagram right now. So I just want to shout out to my guy, Frank Hernandez, the great Bambino, our guy Paco. He's joining us right now. He just
shout out Paco.
Just left a comment on my Instagram. I think they don't finish in the top 6. Quote me if I'm wrong. And he's talking about Denver. And Nick Hamilton also is with us right now on Instagram. So if you guys have questions, comments, leave them on the Instagram, leave them on Twitter, and we're going to get to them as we go along. Back to you on that one, partner. Just wanted to give a quick shout out.
Yeah, no doubt. I was actually about to switch gears because there's a few different teams, like we said, where we're going to see exactly how they do, how they'll fare later on in the season. But there's a lot of storylines going on this year. You Steph Curry playing without Klay Thompson for the first time. You got obviously what we talked about with the Villanova boys up in New York, Giannis and Dame, PG and Philly.
Yeah, that's
obviously a big one. The Clippers losing PG and moving into a new arena. Like, what is your top storyline? Just give me one. We'll go brief on this, but what is the top storyline to you that you're going to be writing all throughout the season that's not going to give you any breaks? That's just going to be, right there all season.
I'm going to take a page out of the Chaez Pearson playbook in the 2023 season. And this year, I'm going to be the Chaez Pearson of this podcast. And I'm riding with the city of brotherly love, with the process, with PG-13, with Mad Maxey and Daryl Morey up in the front office. And as Nick Hamilton would say, Nick Nurse. Yeah. So I'm rolling with the Sixers. And I'll tell you this, because they have put it all on an aging Paul George, a very good Paul George, but an aging Paul George, a former MVP who's injury riddled, and a very young but very exciting Tyrese Maxey, who set a high bar for himself last year, like I thought he would, and he did all of that and then some. Sixers are going to be the team to watch all year long. Western Conference, Eastern Conference. Yes, the Nova Knicks are going to be one to watch too. Boston, can they repeat? Because we haven't had a repeat champion in forever, not since the Warriors did it 6-7 years ago. But I think Philly, with what they've got in place and how they're pushing it all in the middle of the table, that is the most compelling storyline to me coming into the 24-25 season.
My man, I couldn't be proud. Chris, I am so proud of you to taking a page out of my book, because you already know what's up. You already know what's up. Now, I was on Philly all year last year, and they had a great season until Joel Embiid's knees went out. That's going to be the same boat that you're going to be in this year, riding it all on Joel Embiid's knees and his health. Me, it's going to be the city of angels, man.
Oh, boy.
This potentially could be LeBron James's last year, and we don't even know it yet.
That's true.
To me, that's the storyline that is going to be the one that I'm locked in on, along with, obviously, LeBron James Jr., Bronny, playing alongside his dad, having a guaranteed spot at the end of the bench, not going to the G League. You can't send him to the G League because of the deal that he signed that Rich Paul was able to negotiate for him. So you're going to see Bronny literally on the bench for every single Laker game. So how many minutes he plays, what big plays he has, does he impact the game? Just the whole Laker story, that storyline, because it could be LeBron James's last year. Now, look, do I think that he would do it the way that Kobe would do it? Does LeBron James deserve that victory lap of a season where everybody knows this is his last time in this arena? Yes. So he's conscious enough to tell everybody, I think in his last year, which I think is going to be year 23, which is the following year, but this could be his last year. We don't know if he's going to sustain an injury. We don't know if he's going to have some kind of light bulb when he tries to get out of bed in January in the middle of the season. And he's like, you know what? I'm over this. Like, that's the storyline that I'm going to be tapped into all year. Obviously, the Philadelphia 76ers one is great. And I could have went with so many more. Shit. Sure. I could have even said KCP in Orlando with that team, that being a good storyline. But
that's
the Lakers are the Lakers.
And Orlando could be this year's Indiana Pacers, where I think they kind of come out of nowhere, although they didn't really come out of nowhere. They were a 4 seed this past year. So they're another team where you hope that there's not any drop off. And I don't think there will be. I think that they will continue to build on what they did. However, given the fact that the East has gotten as tough as it has, and some of these other teams are going to get healthier and some of them have improved, it could be a little bit of a tougher road. And now this year, everyone's going to see you coming. It's, I've always said this, Chaez, it's easy to slap someone upside the head when they're not looking. It's a lot more difficult to do it when they see it coming. And I think that could be the Orlando Magic this year. I think that could be, maybe even OKC and Minnesota, where I don't think those teams will take a massive step back, but I also think it'll be harder than it was for them last year. So there's going to be, I think you have to watch how these young teams progress, because we've seen it through the years where teams will have these great seasons, regular seasons, or even postseason runs, or one or the other. And then all of a sudden the next year they look average again. And they're essentially running it back. We've seen that with the Hawks. We've seen that with the Mavs. We've seen that with the Kings. We've seen that with a lot of teams. We saw that with the Lakers.
The Hawks.
This past
year.
Hawks.
So. The Hawks have done that shit every year almost. Any year that they're good, but
right. Yeah. But I'm talking more recently, the 21 season when they were in the Eastern Conference Finals. So we shall see. It's going to be a very compelling year. And I don't know if the league has had this much parity in quite some time. And by the way, Brandon Ingram and Jeremy Grant, those are the two guys that'll be on trade watch this year, because if New Orleans is out of it, and they still don't have an agreement with Brandon Ingram. I know they said, well, we want to try to do blah, 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 and try to work out an extension. Don't believe it. If they haven't worked it out by now, then that could be a problem down the road. And if New Orleans, who lost some key pieces, even though they got DeJounte Murray and, they'll still be competitive, but in a competitive Western Conference already, if you're not thriving, you're dying. And that's where I think watch out for him. And then Portland being who they are, they're not going anywhere. They got a young team. Look out for them to maybe try to shop Jeremy Grant again, and maybe you and Jeremy Grant lower their price. I'm just saying those are the trade guys. Those are the guys on the trade block that you may want to watch. Not for the Lakers, not for anyone in particular. I'm just saying, just watch out for it.
Can you give me the guy that's going to become so disgruntled that by the trade deadline we're going to be talking about him possibly switching teams? Like, so who's your every year? There's always a guy at the trade deadline that can either get traded or wait until the offseason. That player this year that we didn't know about was Paul George.
Yeah,
we thought it was going to be James Harden, but it ended up being Paul George, right? So who's the player? Right, the year before it was Dame. We didn't see Dame being as disgusting.
Well, but Portland, the signs were there though. Portland, Dame was saying, "Oh, I want to stay. I'm happy here." Blah blah blah. And Portland was dying, and we figured he's on borrowed time at this point. If he doesn't get moved at the deadline, he's going to get moved next offseason, and he did. I'm telling you,
Clay was that player during the season this year. Right now, he wasn't talked about being traded because he was on an expiring deal, but. Like, we didn't know that things were as bad as they were until they were as bad as they were. So I'm just trying to get you to rub your crystal ball a little bit and tell me who you think that might be.
I think the safe answer would be what I just said, Brandon Ingram. I think he's going to be the most attainable. The other guy that I think could have a falling out, but he's not going to have much value, would be Bradley Beal, because no one's going to want to touch that contract. But I could see Beal being the odd man out in a system that's going to be tailored around KD and Book. And if Tyus Jones starts really playing up to his potential at the point guard position, and let's say Bud tries to pitch the idea of Beal coming up off the bench, which I think is the only thing that makes sense, that would actually give that team some balance. He's not going to do it. I understand that. But if it's not working, and then all of a sudden another lineup with Tyus Jones, Booker, Durant, and so forth start working in Phoenix, and Beal's the odd man out, you could definitely see him start to get disgruntled. Definitely. And also one other guy, Julius Randle. If they don't come up with a contract extension, I could see him getting disgruntled in New York as well.
My guy, Jimmy Butler.
Good one.
The writing is on the wall in Miami. I don't think that they're quick to give him an extension. I think he's butting heads with Pat Riley. I think Jimmy Butler could be that player. Now, will they do it? Will something happen? Will it pop off? I don't know. I'm no insider. I have zero sources. Maybe a source or two, but nothing that's legitimate enough to make me come on here and be like, hey, he's out of there. So yeah, I'm just throwing something against the wall. I'm thinking it's going to be probably Jimmy Butler. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more rumblings about Steph if the Warriors are even worse than what we think they will be. Now, will they ever let go of Steph? Will Joe Lacob ever do that? No. He'll get rid of Draymond and do a whole bunch of other stuff before he lets that happen. But could we hear about Steph being disgruntled by the All-Star break in February if they're in 13th place again? I think so.
No, it's definitely it's possible, but Steph means so much to that franchise. I don't think that would quite happen. So and just like we may, we'll probably hear LeBron stories like we always do, just like we just did here this week about a potential trade idea that got scrapped by Rich Paul because he was protecting his guy and the narrative and the legacy surrounding LeBron James. That the Lakers were interested. Now I don't know how true any of this stuff is. That was just a report. I know you saw it too, that the Lakers were willing to trade LeBron to Golden State for basically a haul of young players. Go ahead.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah, go ahead. That's why I brought it up. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. I know I threw a curveball at you right now. Let's see if you could hit it.
Somebody's lying. Somebody's lying because the report was that it didn't even get that far. Right? That they called and it was like, hey, it's on LeBron. Don't go ahead and ask LeBron, right? That wasn't the original report that they had players, that they had this, that they had that, and Rich Paul had to step in at the 11th hour in order to get everything to tamper down. No. So I don't know if it's the original report or if it was this one, but it sounds like this one has more legs than the other one because the original report was, hey, the Warriors called the Lakers and Jeannie said, ask Bron. It's on him. And it was like, nah. Now, that does coincide with Rich Paul possibly because I'm sure Bron didn't get the actual call. It was Rich Paul that did, and Rich Paul saying, nah, I'm good, or let me call Bron and see first, obviously, or whatever the case may be. But I don't think that the story is really jiving from when we first found out till now. So somebody's lying at some point, whether it be the reporter or the parties involved. But I just wanted to point out that inconsistency there from that original report.
Yeah. And who, like I said, this was a report that just kind of popped up. Who knows what's true, what's not. There's always this revisionist history and all of that stuff. And once everything is settled, that's when the truth comes out. And, LeBron having as much influence as he did, plus the no trade clause. Now, I don't know if that would have been in effect, but at the same point in time, it wouldn't have shocked me, especially if the Lakers knew that LeBron wanted out and was willing to opt out and leave as a free agent. Then I could have seen the Lakers start saying, you know what, let's work out a deal so we get something in return. If you're that unhappy here, you want to go to Golden State, fine. But we need to negotiate this, and we got to negotiate it carefully because we're also making a deal with a division foe. So we've got to make sure that it's fair on both sides. It's not like they're trading them to the Eastern Conference. So I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know what's real, what's not, and I'm sure more will come out with that story. But it doesn't sound unrealistic either, as far as Rich Paul's role in the whole thing.
Yeah. No doubt. One thing I also want to touch on is my connection. I don't know what's up with it. My video is just god awful. So for those of you that are tapped in looking at this, we appreciate you. Chris is clearly clear, but for whatever reason, I'm not. So we'll get that fixed for next week and moving forward. Just wanted to touch base on that.
We're still dialing in this. Yeah, we're still dialing in this restream, guys. It happens. Last week we had the audio that wasn't aligned correctly. This week it's the video. So we're dialing this in.
We're dialing it in. We're getting ready for the season, but we're gonna switch gears really quick. New topic, but who's got more to prove, Chris? Straight up, Zion, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or Wemby, coming off his Rookie of the Year season.
That's a really good question. I honestly still think it's Zion Williamson, to be quite honest with you, given the injuries, given the issues with his conditioning, given the fact that his teams have not gone very far. Last year they were ousted they got into the playoffs. They got the 8th seed, but they got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Granted, he did not play in that. So that was a major story. Who knows if the Lakers win if Zion doesn't go down when he did, because he was cooking the Lakers. He was cooking Rui Hachimura and Anthony Davis and LeBron and everything like that. So I think this is a year for him. No more excuses, no more injuries, no more issues with coaches or players or anything like that. If you're healthy, you better get your ass on the court, stay healthy, stay well-conditioned, and basically show why you are still an elite talent in this game. Because Chaez, he's going into year 6. And to be quite honest, he hasn't really shown us a lot as far as the team success aspect of it. So from that aspect, he's got a lot to show. And it's got to start
even
with
individually.
Both, yeah. Individual and as a team. And we saw SGA do both last year. So he's proven that he could do it. And I think even Wemby showed it from an individual aspect. And what we saw him do in the Olympics, particularly his emotion after that loss, that to me showed that this is a winning ball player right here. And now with more competent role players, San Antonio will still be a fringe playoff team. They're still figuring it out. But if they do better than New Orleans this year, that is a major shame. And that's going to fall on Zion. More so than Griff, more so than Willie Green, more so than B.I. It's going to fall on Zion. So he's really got to come roaring out of the gates this year. Yeah, I think so.
But how if we can't even expect for him to play more than 50 games a season, right? Like if his expectation
that's a you problem.
I'm just saying, if his expectation isn't that he's going to be there the full season anyway,
right?
And they don't, and that happens, and they fail again, how is it on him? It's got to be the guy that's putting him in that position. Now, there is a stipulation in his contract that says he has to play at least, I believe, 60 games or 65 games or whatever the number is to have his salary guaranteed for next season. It's already guaranteed, like partially for this season, but it'll be fully guaranteed for the rest of this season and next season if he plays. Well, no, actually, it's for this season, not even next season.
I just think, Chaez, a lot of these guys, especially these last 2 years, and maybe you disagree with this, some of these young players who have come in draft classes in 20 and 21 and 22, they're passing him up right now to the point where as far as the great young talent in this game, I'm not even sure if he's still on the top 10. Now, maybe he still is.
He is.
But at the same point in time, look at what Wemby and Chet Holmgren just did this past year.
Right.
SGA, Ant-Man.
I promise you. I'm just saying, none of those players you're going to buy a ticket for, other than if you know Zion is playing, right? Like let's take out the injury question mark like entirely. If you know Zion is playing, you're going to pay for a ticket before you go see Lauri Markkanen, SGA, maybe even the guy that I think has more to prove in this situation to answer this question is Wemby. I think Wemby has more to prove than both of these guys in Zion and SGA because Wemby is on an all-time trajectory right now. These two guys aren't, right? SGA came in. He wasn't really highly touted like that. He wasn't a number one pick. He actually was a really good player who got even better than what we thought he would being this early in the game. Zion is a letdown completely already as is, with especially given the hype that he was coming into the league with, regardless of even if he wins a championship and is an all-star multiple times further on in his career, because the trajectory and the pressure that Zion came with, he hasn't been able to live up to. Now, Wemby, that guy has been able to not only back up and prove everything that and all the pressure that on why he was going to be the number one pick, but he even stamped himself internationally even more so in this past Olympics, dunking on everybody in Germany, doing what he did and getting that team to the final game in their home country against Team USA, and actually put up a good fight that game, even though they got Steph Curry chefed at the end of that game like anybody else would. But Wemby is the guy for me that has the most to prove because he's on the all-time trajectory. Like based on what Wemby's doing right now and has been doing even in his first year in the league, if he stays on that trajectory for not even 15 or 20 years, just 12 years, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, multiple-time All-Star. He'll win at least one ring under Greg Popovich because he's that good and he's doing what he's doing, putting Rudy Gobert on the bench for Team France even though he did have an injury. But Wemby playing in his first Olympics, doing what he did, and he's got CP throwing him lobs in this upcoming season. So look out for the Spurs, and Wemby definitely has no most to prove.
I hear you, and I think you make a good argument. However, Wemby is still young. So that's the thing he could lean on. He's going into year 2, Chaz. Just keep that in mind. And he's already set a high bar. You're right. But at the same point in time, Zion, if you're going to continue to stay committed to him, if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, and likely they will because it's New Orleans, it's hard enough as it is to get free agents there. So where else are we going to go, right? However, if you are going to continue to go on this trajectory and not blow it up, which means not only trading Brandon Ingram, but maybe trading Herbert Jones, maybe trading CJ McCollum, maybe even trading DeJounte Murray, who knows? If you're not successful, at some point they may say like, you know what? Not only are we going to trade those 3 or 4 guys, we may need to consider trading Zion and just completely scrap this thing and start from the bottom again. So that's why I think... Yeah, they traded Anthony Davis.
But wouldn't that fully validate or invalidate the Anthony Davis trade for the Pelicans fans?
You got to know when to cut your losses, though, my friend. And David Griffin knows how to do that. He's been there. I'm not saying it'll be this year. I still think they're going all in, and I even think here's another hot take. And
all in like Jerry Jones, huh?
It's sort of a what do you call it? I'm sort of going to be contrarian here because I just said BI will likely be on the block. I honestly think BI finishes out this season with New Orleans more than likely, because I also don't think Griff is going to want to settle on value on Brandon Ingram. I think he's going to be like, you know what? Let's see what we can do. Maybe we come to an extension agreement at some point, and he plays well enough to give us well enough for us to give him a max deal. But at the same point in time, I also wouldn't be surprised if they roll out this squad this season and then see if they could be a disruptor in the Western Conference. But it's got to start with Zion, my friend. It can't be anybody else. It's got to be Zion. And they got a good solid squad. I also think they got a little smaller. That may screw them up a little bit, but they're going to go as number 1 goes.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. We'll see how this season progresses and how it starts.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, saying it's Wemby. But we got to get to another young player that I was going to include into that question on more to prove, but I think he's proven a lot already, even more so to where he's making commenting on the game from 30 years ago, and that's Anthony Edwards, having the comments that he had recently in regards to skill. Anthony Edwards said, and I'll just paraphrase instead of put up the quote, he pretty much said that guys didn't have skill like that when Michael Jordan was playing back in the day. It was just Michael Jordan that only had skill. That's why when Kobe Bryant came around, everybody was like, oh my God, quote unquote. But everybody nowadays has skill. I have the audio for it.
But I do have the quote. I do have the quote. I have
Go ahead and read it.
Yeah, courtesy of USA Today. I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. Edwards told the Wall Street Journal. Edwards then continued to speak on it. Wow. They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then, he said. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill. You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh my God. But now everybody has skill. Not sure what game he's watching. Isaiah Thomas didn't like it. He retorted on social media, propaganda works, so be careful what you choose to believe. And then this was an interesting comment too, and a little disrespectful to a certain future Hall of Famer. I don't know too many guys who won a championship super young besides Kobe. Other than him, everybody took years and years of losing to get there. I just want to keep taking the next step. And on if he is bad at anything, I haven't found it yet. So it's good to know Anthony Edwards is a really humble young man. Okay, first of all, you want to take a crack at this first, or should I? Because I thought even though he acknowledged Kobe, you didn't see guys win championships super young. Did he forget about Magic Johnson in 1980, a rookie? Did he forget about Larry Bird in 81, a second-year player? Did he forget about Dwayne Wade in 2006, who was in his third year? Huh?
Clearly you wanted to go, so go ahead and go. Go ahead. Go off.
I'm cooking, brother.
Let off. Go ahead.
Stand off to the side. I'll make sure you get a plate. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, you first of all, you said I'm not going to comment on it, that I haven't watched it, but I'm going to comment on it anyway. Are younger players coming in more skilled? Yeah, you could make an argument for that, but don't discount what other guys did 25, 30 years ago, because it was a different kind of skill. You know, don't discount what Hakeem Olajuwon did when he came into the game. Don't discount what, Magic Johnson did when he came into the game. Tim Hardaway at one point in time was arguably one of the most explosive guards in the game. You know, Jason Kidd became a future Hall of Famer. Don't discount what the class of 96 did. Don't discount what the class of 03 did. Don't discount what the class of 84 did, because these guys were not only skilled, but they were polished, and they had a workman-like mentality too. They did more years in college. And yeah, maybe they didn't win a championship super young. Jordan took 7 years. You know, even Kareem, I think, didn't win a championship till his like 4th year or 5th year in Milwaukee. I think it was in, I can't even remember the year that they won. Might've been 73 or something like that. And Kareem was drafted in 69. So yeah, it sometimes takes guys a long time. Took Hakeem Olajuwon, Chaez, 10 years to finally reach a finals and win a championship. That still never won a ring. Yeah. Malone, Stockton, Reggie, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley.
I'm talking about guys that are in this newer era that still haven't won, that are all-time greats, that some people would say, like James Harden, like Paul George, like Carmelo. Russell Westbrook, like Carmelo, like Damian Lillard.
For sure.
You know, like there are players that are on the top 75 team right now that are still playing right now. Yeah, that have never sniffed a ring as well. So
for sure, yeah. And was the league as explosive in the 90s and the 80s? Probably not as much. I don't know if players had as much raw athleticism, but they certainly weren't not skilled, and that's the difference. So that tells me this guy really hasn't watched shit going back to the 90s.
He said that. Here's the thing.
Well, you make yourself sound dumb. Right, but you make yourself sound dumb when you make comments like that. It's like me saying, Chaez, oh yeah, people in the 70s and the 80s, Chaez, and I'm just talking about regular individuals, were not that smart. What the fuck are you talking about? You weren't even alive, meaning me, during that time. Why the hell would I even say that? And excuse the profanity, and I love the Ant-Man. You know that. I am a huge Anthony Edwards fan. But when you make comments like this, you just sound dumb. I'm not saying you are dumb. I'm saying you sound dumb in those moments, and you sound cocky in the process, and that's just not a recipe for success. So turn it over to you. But that kind of just annoyed me when I saw that.
I mean, it's definitely annoying, but it's not to the point where, I'm gonna let off on the young brother like that, because forgive him, Lord, for he not know what he does, and he just doesn't know. And ignorance is bliss in this position for Anthony Edwards, and he's playing the best basketball of his career, getting lobs thrown to him by his childhood idol in Kevin Durant. He is on cloud 9. He can do no wrong. His team is paying him. He's playing great. He just got the new shoe deal with Adidas that just dropped. He got no allows, talking shit about why is he the face and this and that. Everybody talking about what he's saying. Anthony Edwards is on cloud 9. So I'm not going to fault the young brother for being who he is and outspoken as what he is. But that doesn't mean that he's not wrong as 2 left shoes, because he is. And he just didn't know. And he said he didn't know. And I don't want to comment, but let me go ahead and comment. So, this will just be another one of his comments that'll just be swept under the rug, because his play will stand out for him more than any words that he'll say, unless he says something stupid like fuck Kobe or something dumb like that. But
for sure. And then
I'm not going to trip off of the young fella like that.
I'm not chipping. I'm just saying it's unnecessary. And all you're going to do, Ant-Man, is open the doors for the old heads, like the Inside Crew, like an Isaiah Thomas or some of these other guys that are on NBA TV, to basically say, oh, all these guys do is whine about fouls. These guys couldn't have survived in the era. They're soft. They need load management. They need more days off. They need all of that. If you think we were so unskilled at least we played every day. You guys are making, 8-9 figures without even making an all-star team, and you're doing it on our backs. Those kind of comments paved the way for the old heads to come after you and this entire generation of hoopers that make up the NBA. And I'm right on that.
You're right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But I'm just trying to shed a little light on the other side. Saying that it's wrong at the same time. One thing, I want to get to David's comment real quick. David, appreciate you being in the chat. Should Shaq have been on the part of the 92 Dream Team over Christian Laettner? That's an obvious yes, but hey,
the only thing I could say on that,
politics.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your thought. And
politics happen, and Isaiah Thomas should have been on that team as well, but he wasn't. So.
Exactly. And guys are always going to get left off. And, this was new territory. They were not only trying to get the best players, and people don't always want to hear this. They were also trying to get the right fits. And I'm not trying to say Laettner was more of a fit over Shaq, but at the same point in time, Laettner as a college player at that juncture was, I think, more polarizing. And I'm not using popular, Chaz. I'm using polarizing and more accomplished than Shaq was. A 2-time national champion, John Wooden Award winner, Naismith winner, whatever, awards that they have in college. He was still is one of the most accomplished college players over the last 30 years. And obviously that's saying a lot, but we've also had a lot of one and done. So it's not really a great measure. Whereas Shaq, very talented, was on the rise and everything like that, didn't quite have the polarization yet. He was getting there, though. He was getting there. And you're right. Shaq would have been great to have on the team, and probably, was more, could have made the argument to being on the team over Laettner. But Laettner was also a more polarizing figure, and I think and more accomplished. That's the thing. I mean, do you disagree with that on why?
No.
Anyway, yeah.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. But I just.
No, you're right though. Politics definitely played a factor into it. Yeah,
it's just politics.
James Worthy. Dominique. Yeah, you could have put those guys on there too.
Do you want to answer David's last question before we get out of here? We appreciate it, David.
Yeah, thanks, David. Appreciate it. The great David Portillo. Check him out. I can't see the question. You'll have to read it to me, man.
He said, what's your favorite 30 for 30 on basketball?
Oh man. That's a good one right there. The Len Bias one was sad. The Len Bias.
You know what? I'll see your Len Bias and I'll raise you Benji. Do you remember the Benji story?
Yeah.
Chicago got shot, died senior year. Yeah.
Man, yeah. Actually my favorite one though, it's not a basketball one. And I just watched it with my girl not too long ago, the 85 Bears. That was a really good sports doc right there. That was a really good 30 for 30. I really like that. OJ Made in America, another one. I know I'm going off grid. Another good hoops one. I know, Chaz, you're about to roll your eyes on this one. Well, two of them. One, I'm going to go Lakers versus Celtics, the 4-part series, narrated beautifully by Ice Cube and Donnie Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, that was no, I think it was Donnie. It was his brother Donnie that did it, not Mark.
It was Donnie? It wasn't Mark?
I think it was Donnie. Yeah, I don't think they could have gotten Mark on that one. Yeah.
We got to fact check that. If they got Q on it.
Yeah, but I don't know. But Cube is everything LA though, man. I'm not surprised. Cube's the man. Mark Wahlberg would, I could see him bowing out of that. The other one, The Bad Boys, Story of the Pistons. That was a well-made doc too. I like that one. Kid Rock, the narrator. That was a good one.
He did. That was good. Yeah. I'll give you one more. You Don't Know Bo. The Bo Jackson one.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That was a really good one.
That's a really good one.
30. I mean, yeah, it wasn't basketball, but
no. And the 4 Falls of Buffalo, about the Buffalo Bills and going to 4 straight Super Bowls and losing.
Yeah.
By the way, you could find some of these on Netflix.
I'm thinking about there's so many, even Deion Sanders, like the trip back and forth from playing the 2 games in one day for the Falcons and the Braves. Man, we could go on forever on this, but
Deion's double day.
Guys. Deion's double day. Appreciate you guys. Don't want to go over. We've been tapped in for almost an hour here, but appreciate you guys locking in with us. Till next week. You guys know where to follow us on Instagram at Outlet Forum, on Twitter. Follow me at Chaez P, at Chaz Pearson on Instagram, at Twitter. Man, so many topics to get into. We're gonna come with the heat every single week. Chris, give your shout outs and where to follow you, my man.
Well, one more shout out to a comment to my good friend, a good family friend, Frank Hernandez. Great show as always. I enjoy every minute listening to the two of you. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Frank tapped into Frank tapped in last week to a special edition of Camelo's Corner that I did on IG Live, and I actually got him to do the split screen, so that was cool. Shout out to John Watson, who just came on as well. But yeah, no, you could always follow me on Twitter at Chris_Camelo. I'm on Instagram, as you guys know, at CCamelo1, and be sure to follow us on at The Outlet Forum on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Chaz?
My man. You guys know what it is. Until next week, we'll see what happens. You know, this is kind of the dog days of the NBA and basketball, you know, but let's talk. We didn't talk any Angel Reese, any Caitlin Clark, none of that. And I have so many comments on it. So we'll tap into the WNBA next week, and we'll talk about a little bit of what's going to go on in the playoffs, especially with Caitlin Clark going off and doing her thing. So until next week, playoffs. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tapping in to the Outlet Forum. See you next week. Peace.